you're talking about divorce, it's such a touchy subject, and several of us here have experienced it. We've experienced the failure and the embarrassment and the scarlet letter D. So, Jennifer, what do you have to say about divorce?
Yeah, so the hardest thing for me was me not having an identity after he was gone. As simple as things like not knowing what to cook for dinner anymore, activities to plan with the kids, and that was something we always discussed together, and now I'm the decision maker. I'm the only decision maker. And a lot of times I think you like to have somebody just to bounce ideas off of, and you grow accustomed to that. So when you lose that and you have to step into that role, it's difficult. And I think the biggest thing for me was, realizing that I do still have somebody to bounce ideas off of.
Right.
I can pray about it. And he may not sit across the table from me and speak out, but I definitely think he leads our decisions. So I become more reliant on God from that perspective. Not necessarily about what I'm going to cook for dinner, but financial decisions to make and things I'm considering and choices for careers and things like that. I definitely fall back on him and try to listen to what he's trying to tell me.
It's so funny that you say that, because you have 2 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you still would have to cook for 3 people.
Right.
So one other person is really not a big difference. But for me, it was probably 6 months before I even cooked again, because it was like, your whole schedule is thrown off. So why is it one person affects your dinner choice? It was funny.
As women, we're the people pleaser. I think that's a role a lot of us assume. So we try to do what the kids want to have to eat. We want to do what the husband wants to have to eat. And when you lose that, you're lost. You're like, I don't know. So I was saying that the first time I went to the grocery store, I put the kids in the cart and we bought nothing but junk food.
Right.
Like, we're gonna have Oreos for dinner. Yeah.
Can I be a kid? We were like Krispy Kremes.
It's nice. The kids loved that grocery visit, but after that, I was like, maybe we can work some vegetables in there. And it's like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can do this. Is I think the biggest thing I want to get across to people. It's a tough blow. It's definitely a tough blow, but if you stay faithful and if you stay strong and you just focus on the things that you do have control over, it works out. You find happiness again. You're able to find joy again. And at some point, you are able to find love again.
Well, I think divorce for everybody is, of course, different, and it affects people differently. With my divorce, to be honest with you, I didn't have any of those feelings because I was so relieved to be out of the situation that I was in. My biggest thing was I didn't want to, to some degree, I did kind of feel like a failure because it just wasn't a thing that my family did.
Right.
And I hate to say that but there are so many families, and especially these days, who are divided and they come from broken homes, and my family is not one of those families. My grandparents all remained married. My parents, have been married my whole life, and I just felt like I know that they went through hard times and they faced things, and and I watched it, and I felt like they stuck by each other and stood and endured it, and I did not. And so I did have some sort of guilt for that, but then at the same time, like I said, my situation was totally different.
Right.
And so I had cheerleaders behind me saying, you can do this. This is what you need. You've got to get out of this situation. You have to stop it now. And I was thinking about my son and what it was going to mean to him, had I stayed and endured the whole situation. So for me, it wasn't so much, of course it was adjustments and changes, but it was more of just letting down our morals, I guess, So that was the hardest thing for me. I wasn't in church at the time, and so I wasn't looking to God for the answers like I should have been. So I think it was a wise choice, obviously, for myself and for my son at the time. But I just think it affects everyone differently, you know. So I had never come from a broken home, so that was my hardest thing with it, you know, and just not being accustomed to that kind of thing. So
in your situation, you had some control in. You were,
right.
you know, you had planned it. You knew that you
right.
had to get out of this situation. Whereas other people are in a situation that you don't see it coming, and
right.
you don't realize it's happening, and it just blows up everything.
Right.
So.
But I can definitely relate on feeling guilty because you didn't come from, I mean, I'm in the same scenario there. I mean, we, you know, our family didn't divorce.
Right.
And so that definitely, the guilt and the sense of failure, and it definitely weighed on you. You know, I hate feeling that way, and I tell everybody, I'm like, I don't fail well.
Right.
I really sort of take all those things personally. So when something of that magnitude happens, it is hard to deal with that.
And it's even hard now because a lot of times if someone comes to me who may be struggling in their marriage or whatever, I'm like, you've got to fight for it.
Right.
You have to fight for it. And I kind of a lot of times feel like a hypocrite, you know, because I was there, and I'm the one that chose the divorce, and I'm the one that asked for it, and so I just think you just have to you just learn to live with it day by day, you know, the choices that you've made and the ones that maybe you didn't have any control in making. You just learn to move on and to look to God for His guidance.
Right. And I think we all have to realize that we are human. We're nothing but flesh and bone. We're going to make mistakes.
Right.
We're going to make wrong decisions. You know, we're going to do a million things wrong for every one thing we do right. We just have to try to do and be the best that we can be.
That's right.
And then we just, you know, you rely on God other than that, because, you know, He's the only one that's perfect.
Right.
I'm far from it, so.
I hear some things from you all, and it's about letting your families down. You know, I haven't been through a divorce, and I don't plan on being through a divorce, but I've dealt with a lot of people who have. And one of the things that I was able to see in the spirit realm one day in a prayer service, a young lady had experienced divorce, and it was as if Lazarus had been wrapped in grave clothes. And the Lord spoke to that young lady in that meeting and said, the grave clothes have been applied by the people around. You know, Lazarus didn't jump in those by himself. He had to be wrapped up in it. And what we've allowed people to wrap us up in, their condemnation, their opinion, you know, their religion. Am I here to say that divorce is right or wrong? There's biblical standards for divorce, and there's biblical standards to live by. That's not what this session's about. This session is about identifying the reality of it, and the reality is that we can become dead. I could imagine you feel like things have died in your life, and oftentimes it is by what we have allowed people to wrap us up in that situation. No matter if it's divorce, no matter if it's, you know, a circumstance in our life, we can get so wrapped up by what people think about it.
That's right. And to me, the most important thing is divorce does not define us. We are not divorced. I am not divorced.
I am not divorced either.
I have been divorced. I am not divorced. You know.
That's good. That's right.
It does not define who we are. We are children of God.
Amen.
You know, and that's what everyone needs to remember, is that I am not divorced.
I hope you've been able to see yourself today through one of these stories. Just know that divorce does not define you. This is us.
This
is real.